I'm a little bit, and I was at the other one, and I'm a teacher as well up at Watch on Hills High School, and I think I said this the last time, that I don't envy the position you're in or anybody in this room. I think we're all here to fight for our kids. But a couple of things that I hopefully can get out before I cry or shake more than the words will come out. But just the fact that we're laughing when you're saying oxygen levels, like it literally, it makes me so angry that we think that that's hilarious. Like, I know you're not saying it as a way, like, you know, that you're just using it as an example of something that you wouldn't find the answer to, but there is actually research out there. I have a 9-year-old who was sobbing hysterically on his birthday when he read across the screen, because I was trying to keep it from him till the next day, that masks were mandatory. I got calls endlessly last year to come pick him up for migraines. I go to my pediatrician, wouldn't give me a note. I go to my primary switch doctors, he gives me a note, the school won't accept it. So I'm supposed to send my child, or not send my child, and get phone calls, migraines and vomiting and all of that, to protect who? Who am I protecting? And then the response I got from the principal was, well, once he's eligible to be vaccinated, he won't ever be vaccinated. I don't care if everybody in this room wants to be vaccinated. I don't care if everybody feels comfortable with wearing 100 masks. I just don't understand why people on the other side need to dictate what's healthy for my child. I'm a high school teacher.
That's right.
I'm a high school teacher for 18 years. And I have taught about mental health, suicide. I've had 3 kids die of suicide before COVID. I am not raising my children in the world where they're falling prey to the control and the mechanism. I took a leave of absence from work to homeschool my children. I can't afford to live in this town without making a salary, but I sure as heck won't send my 9-year-old crying hysterically because he thinks that he has to ask for an extra mask break, or we're gonna listen to the CDC, the corrupt CDC, or the school physician. The thing is that I have friends on both sides. I agree with you. I have family on both sides. I refuse to ever let this dictate my beliefs. I don't care if you're on the opposite side. I am all for everybody in this room. I just don't understand why, when it's someone that doesn't want to wear masks on their own children, why they need to be mandated. And it's a mandate. It's not a law. So other schools are claiming that because it is not a law. It needs to be. I am married to a police officer. I know all about government and laws and passing legislature. Okay, so it isn't about that. And if it were about the health and safety of our children, we wouldn't have exceptions where, you know, there's concerts all summer. In here, I was here last Saturday planning homeschool.
That's
There
right.
was no mask required in here. Now all of a sudden the employees are wearing masks. It needs to be 6 feet, but only if it's 3 feet. But only if it's like in a school and not in a restaurant, or if you're walking to your table. You know, it's the vaccinated can get sick and spread COVID. So what is the difference? If you have the vaccine, you can get COVID and spread COVID. So why should we be in a world where we're trying to bring people together and unite? We are dividing, and it's exactly what they want. They want us divided because a nation divided is a lot easier to take over. And I refuse, and like I said, I apologize for seeming angry, or just the fact that I am sitting here, there's people laughing in the room when you're joking about oxygen levels that are proven, because the masks are proven right on the box, to not even transmit the virus, or not even to prevent the virus from being transmitted. Physicians wear masks, but they also wear lab coats because it's for bodily fluids, not for little tiny particles of a virus. So it's all about control. It's control, control, control. And like I said, wear 100 masks if you want to. Wear a bubble. I had teacher friends that wore lab coats, a shield, a mask. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't mind my students coming in with masks or wanting to stay far away. We all have a right for our own children.
Is there a question?
I don't need you to talk at all, actually. Thank you.
Folks, this is exactly what we want to make sure.
Yes,
It's
there is
a
a
very.
question.
I had a lot of questions, actually.
Wait,
Is a
second,
mandate a law?
It's a very, very passionate topic. So again, with everybody, so let's just.
She's asking, why can't they be optional?
Yeah,
Right
that's
now, masks are
in
not
question
optional.
form.
Right now, we are.
This is the study. This is the study CDC did.
Oh,
And
CDC.
it's been peer rejected. What study did you show me a paper? What's the evidence of that? The kids have to wear a mask.
So, folks, there's an executive order
That is
Mandate
not a
law.
law. That is not a law.
It's not, but it's not a law. Then give me the
Why are you
definition. A
may not
mandate is
agree?
not a law. There's two different
A
things.
law is passed down through
I don't
legislation
think
through the
If I
state.
said law, then I misspoke.
You didn't say law, you said
Said
mandate. I'm
mandate.
simply
Okay.
saying that it's
If-
a mandate and not a law. I'm
if
proving that it doesn't
Right
need to
now,
happen.
like I said, you may not like it, but there is a plan, okay?
Well, when the
This
kids
is-
are all
The
taken out of your school
socialist and
district, you won't
communist plan,
like
yes,
either.
there is.
Somebody, yes.
What
Okay.
is the quarantine period if, I'm just gonna say high school, my high school is vaccinated versus unvaccinated?
So,
He really has the best teachers at heart.
Yeah.
yes, what is the quarantine period for somebody who's vaccinated as opposed to unvaccinated? Okay, so, I have that because it changes. So, right now, the quarantine period for unvaccinated individuals in the low to, when we're in the low to moderate range, thank you. When we're in the low to moderate range, it's 7 days with a negative test on day 5 or later, or 10 days of quarantine. And if we're in the high range, which we're not right now, well, this is from the CDC website. So if there's something different, then let me know.
The corrupt
Um,
CDC?
10 to 14 days. If you're vaccinated, that was unvaccinated. If you're vaccinated,
And you can still get and spread the virus,
vaccinated
they have a different
individuals
quarantine.
do not
period.
need to quarantine after contact with someone who has had COVID-19 unless they have symptoms.
Joke.
However, fully vaccinated people should get tested 3 to 5 days after exposure, even if they do not have symptoms. That's the latest, which I suspect is gonna continue to change. But that was the latest as of, the other day.
So if they're
Okay.
vaccinated, no quarantine as long as they are not showing symptoms.
Correct.
If they're unvaccinated, I'm sorry, what was it again?
7, and we're in low to moderate?
Yeah.
7 days with a negative test on day 5 or later, or 10 days of quarantine, if we're in low to moderate. If we're in high, 10 to 14 days.
Where is the logic behind that? Like, where's the logic behind that? That's
I can't
that's in question form. Where is the
I can't
logic?
answer that
Question
question.
mark. Right, because there is no answer. And that's why we're all
Go
here.
ahead.
I had a question about lunches, and I was wondering if the decision about lunches was gonna be done school-specific or district-wide, and when that plan would be made public.
Okay, so the question was about lunches, school-specific or district-wide, and when that would be, when the principals would let parents know. So, district, we are serving lunches. The logistics of how lunches will be served in each building are based upon the building, which is the way it's always been. Okay, so you will be getting that information from the principals if you haven't already gotten it. So I know some have already sent some emails, but if you didn't, you will soon. But we are absolutely serving lunches. I don't know if there's anything, okay. There were some people who had their hands up. Someone from outside, yes. Have there been any what? The question is, have there been any air filter upgrades completed over the summer? Simple answer, yes, but I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Unfortunately, not all the system has been changed or upgraded. We were able to change, based on the referendum, a slew of HVAC units, but not every single unit in the district has been updated.
Did you hear that? Okay. Yes. Sure. Are the air conditioners in Road connected?
As of right now, the rooftop units are not, the manual classrooms are, but there is time for us, we need time to put them on and test them. We haven't tested all the units.
You heard that? Okay, good. Okay, now let's go back in here. I saw a hand here earlier. No?
Me?
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there were people who have had their hand up. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, I have 2 kids in elementary school going to 3rd grade. Has the curriculum changed any? Because I do feel like it wasn't the same. I think we all think that last
Sure.
year. So I'm just wondering, was there any adjustments or kind of how was that handled? to kind of
Absolutely.
bring
So
everyone
Dr.
up?
Felcher is not here today, so asking about adjustments to curriculum. So I have to tell you, our teachers, along with our district supervisors and principals, really did a nice job of looking at the curriculum and saying, okay, what is absolutely 100% essential? So that when when they get to the next grade, we can determine where everybody is. Now, the state has also put in place some tests, start strong assessments and things like that, that you'll be getting information on. And so it has been adjusted and will continue to do that. Us, and honestly, should be happening everywhere. So, and yes, we will, and Monday night, there'll be more information about that for everybody. Yes,
Will the HTPS community be using the REACH app that is pushed by the NJEA in last Tuesday's meeting, where they are asking teachers, because they are a trusted profession and do not need to be medical experts, to ask the students and parents and visitors if they're vaccinated and to push the vaccine agenda. As per the REACH app that was in the Zoom meeting with the NEA and the NJEA last Tuesday. I'm just wondering if the Hillsborough teachers will be using that REACH app.
I'm not familiar with that, so if you can provide some information, I'll take a look at that, because I apologize, I'm not sure what that.
I certainly will.
Okay, all right, yeah, it was about a REACH app, but I'm not familiar with it, so she's gonna provide me some information. I don't know what that's about. One sec, you've had your hand up, and then I'll go back there.
Okay, my question is, you're talking about if they need to be quarantined and tested for COVID-19 and all. How are you going about this when even this corrupt CDC has come out and said PCR tests don't work? They can't tell the difference between the flu, they can't tell the difference between a cold. They sure as hell can't tell the difference between the Delta variant or any other variants that don't exist. So how are you going to say that everybody needs to be tested before coming back to school if they get sick? And how do you differentiate for the kids who have allergies, season allergies and colds?
Well, I'm not gonna say
everything,
anything.
right, but what I'm saying is these tests don't work. They have come out and said these tests do not work. They cannot differentiate the difference between a cold, a flu, COVID, or any of that. So why are you saying that they have to be tested before they come back to school when the tests don't
I
work?
am not saying anything. These
Yes,
are
you did. You were just talking
recommendations
about
based
it.
upon- And the question is, why am I saying
It's
that
right on the
this has to be
CDC
tested?
page from today.
And so I
There
am,
is not a specific
I-
test for the Delta variant. They
folks, if you want me to try to talk, I'll talk, but if you talk over me, I'm not going to. Yes, she is recording me. Yes, thank you. Yes, I understand I'm being recorded. Thank you. So, okay, there were a couple. So I am not saying anything. I am following the recommendations from our district, all the things you don't want to hear from our district physician, or some of you don't want to hear, from our district physician, from the local Department of Health, from the Department of Ed, from the governor's office, from the New Jersey Department of Health, from the county superintendent's office. So that's what we're
So
following.
you're saying you can't answer the question and you're just complying and doing whatever you want because you don't know the answers. And you're just gonna follow everyone else instead of having logical and using your critical thinking that these tests don't work.
What I'm gonna say to that is that I'm not going to engage you in a conversation like this in this forum.
That's a
what I will
cop
say.
out. That's a cop out
Okay,
saying you don't
that's
wanna
fine.
answer it.
Yes. Yes, we're actually talking about that. We wanted to get up and running, we wanted to, get everything settled. So, but that's not off the table. That's not off the table yet. And I think I'm gonna see you next week, right? Excellent, thank you. But did I see another hand out here? Yes. Okay.
Are we going to be following them in that our vaccination process is not going to be sent over to those current guidelines, or if you're vaccinated, you don't need quarantine, you just have to mask and test on day 3 to 5?
As of today, yes, that's what we're doing. And if you're vaccinated and were exposed but are asymptomatic, you can still participate in extracurriculars and athletics and things like that. If you're unvaccinated,
There's no logic to any of this.
then you can't. Right now, at this time. Okay? Yes? Right. The question is there gonna be data published on the number of people who are vaccinated in district or in the town? In a given building. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure about that. I know the township does some statistics that are on like a COVID website somewhere, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Sir?
Why is the remote learning option not being made available?
Right now, according to the guidelines we received from the Department of Ed, they indicated that there's no virtual option available unless schools are shut down for 3 days or more by not just us. Like there might be a time where we may have to close a school or a classroom or a program like we've been doing. That's different. But if the state shuts us down or there's an executive order that shuts us down, then we would shift as we did last year, as we had to do March 2019. So right now that's what we got from the Department of Ed. Could that change? It might. I don't know. Yes.
Hi. So I just finished teaching summer school in the district at Hillsborough High School. And I talked to some students and just to know how they felt. And I was surprised that after spending 27 days with me, 4.5 hours a day, there were actually 2 students that were still anxious. And they said, what are your concerns with going into school? And they were actually anxious about getting the Delta variant or getting COVID, which is surprising because they did want to learn, but they still have this anxiety. So I have 2 questions. One is, will there be extra counseling for students who are anxious because they're living in this world of fear where the media is telling them to be afraid when there's nothing to be afraid of, but that's their mindset, that's the world they're living in, so I want there to be support for them. Also, for students, I had my seniors who were fully vaccinated go down the hallway and they were just taking a little bit of a mask break. It was just the 3 of them, and they were yelled at by a staff member because they weren't wearing the mask properly. And I just feel like, I know as a teacher, I would sit at my desk away from everybody, put my mask on, have a drink of water, because I would get a headache after talking for so long with a mask on. And I also want there to be an environment where students can advocate for themselves when they need a mask mandate. So I feel like, as a faculty, we have to realize we have to make accommodations for the students who just want a breath of fresh air. And so I just feel like we need accommodations and counselors available for those that are anxious of getting sick, but also for those who they feel suffocated and just need to get some fresh air, walk out of the room or something.
So the question,
Good point.
the comments were that this is one of our staff members, a teacher who was teaching at the ESY program, the extended school year program, and realized that there were a couple of students who were anxious about getting the virus. And she was asking whether or not there would be counseling for students who are still anxious about coming to school and perhaps getting the COVID. And then the other question or comment was about students being able to advocate for themselves and staff being able to say to students, yes, if you need a break, walk away, take a mask off, take a mask break.
Yeah, and I was teaching high school students this summer, so they were better advocate for themselves, and I would let them know, okay, we have some time now. If you need a break, go outside, go take a walk, whatever you need
Absolutely.
to do. Some of them stayed with their mask on the entire time, just sat in one spot. Others took advantage to go take a walk or go outside and just have a break and breathe, and they appreciated that.
Sure. She shared that most of her students that she was with in the program were high school students who were able to advocate for themselves. And so, is that okay? That's absolutely okay. And see, and yes, we do have counseling. In fact, our counselors, as part of the ESSER grant, were, Ms. Smedley, worked with the school counselors they're already seeing some students who we, principals and teachers, have identified as perhaps being a little anxious already. So they've already started working with some of these students. The other thing is, I believe that our teachers have always sort of done that when a student has had a thing, whatever the thing is.
Faculty members that are still, there was a faculty member who yelled at another teacher who was in the same workroom and said, put your mask up, like the person wasn't even allowed to drink a cup of coffee. So I just think we need, as faculty, to get,
Sure, and so I think that our teachers are, for the most part, you're sharing something that I wouldn't be privy to, that if a student needs something, and a parent feels like a student needs something, that a discussion takes place and it happens. I'm sure that the principals will affirm for the staff members that yes, this is okay. I mean, these are times where flexibility is called for, although I really felt that our teachers did that, whatever the case may be, COVID or not. But what you're saying is just an affirmation that that's the case.
Yeah, just to be aware that,
absolutely.
of others' needs.
Right, everybody has different thoughts, feelings, emotions, and needs, absolutely. And so those are things we want to keep in mind. We want the place to be safe for everybody, safe or healthy, or at least a level of comfort for everybody to be in school. Students, staff members alike, everybody. We want everybody to feel as comfortable as possible. There are people who won't and there are people who will, but I think that that's always the way it is, honestly. Yes,
So I have a question regarding the nurses in all the schools.
yes.
Last year, there was like this 3-page paper that was sent home. Long story, my daughter goes to the nurse because she had cramps. It happened, she's 13. And she went into the nurse and said, I have a headache and I have cramps.
Okay.
Well, those are 2 symptoms of COVID. So I get called, I had to go pick her up, and I was sent home with a 3-page piece of paper, and I wanted to know if that same form is gonna be used this year. Because it was pretty detailed of like 1 or 2 symptoms, or 3 or 4 symptoms, and what you need to do for each. And because my kid had a cramps, she was out of school for 14 days until I provided the negative COVID test and a note from the pediatrician.
Oh,
I
okay.
was not a happy person, I'm not
Sure.
gonna lie, like,
Sure.
kids get periods.
Right.
So, are they allowed to go to the nurse
Right.
and say, I have a stomach ache, or is that gonna happen, is my question.
Right, right. So the question was that the nurses last year sent like a 3-page memo or something indicating like if you have these symptoms and the direction. So the question is that gonna happen this year? And if a child goes to the nurse with the example that was used was cramps, is she gonna be sent home because she's got cramps? So I don't know if the memo is gonna be utilized. We can,
Or even changed, like, I didn't know, cause now,
or
you
adjusted.
know, her question, it's changed with the days and all that, so.
Right, right. So
you know.
that's something that I know Dr. Radwan is working with the nurses about, so we'll follow up with that and we'll see what, what's going on there.
Okay, cause
Okay,
I'm not
because
gonna
I don't
lie,
know.
I'm gonna just tell you, I wound up telling my kids after that,
Don't go.
unless you're bleeding or not breathing, don't go to the frickin' nurse. I'm not gonna lie, like, that stinks, but that's what I had to say after that, cause that's like,
Again, we're trying to balance, right? And it gets very, as a parent, as a teacher, as a staff member, as a community,
they just said it was protocol. It was protocol.
everybody's trying to follow do what the right thing, honestly. Yes. I'm sorry, did you have your hand up? Yeah.
You were saying before about having kind of multiple plans. I'm just curious, you were saying there was talk about like the staff and teachers possibly being mandatory vaccinated. Like,
By the state,
So
yeah.
I guess what is our plan B that if the day before school or something, the teachers and staff strike or something like that happens, right? That only hurts our kids not starting school on time. So what is gonna be our plan B if that happens?
Well, okay, teacher striking is, I guess, technically not permitted by, but, okay, I hear what you're saying. Honestly, I can't imagine that our teachers would do that. I can't imagine that, but the union leadership has been a part of all of these planning meetings, and so we're in constant communication with union leadership. So if something like that were to occur, I really don't think it would. I think that we would have some indication that there was unrest somewhere, but right now, we're not feeling that. We are, in fact, the union president and I were texting each other very early this morning about different topics. So I can't imagine that that's the case. I know for fact, now I have a meeting this afternoon, which this might change, but I know for a fact that there's one district right now in Somerset County who's mandating vaccines for staff members. So far, there's just the one before anything else. We've not done that either. That's not something that I would recommend it to the board or to the successful September meeting. But, so that's where we are with that. Yes.
Question for Woods Road based on the fact that we don't have principal as of yet, and we have had about 0 communication, and it makes me a little nervous that, you know, lunches and things are based upon the building principal, and we don't have anybody who's
Actually, Mrs. Fisher
been
is
there.
actually got her feet at the high school and at Woods Road, but.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
so
she
I don't
is,
know
she is,
how-
and she has responded to parents,
Okay.
the questions about Woods Road, not having a principal yet, and that sort of thing. Actually, we have an HR committee meeting this afternoon, we have a board meeting Monday night, we're moving someone forward for that position, and we also have an interim in place, to move forward with the board and the committee, so that we can, have somebody in place.
Okay.
But, Woods Road has not been ignored, Woods Road is being taken care of,
Okay.
absolutely 100%. Mrs. Fisher is really doing a phenomenal job in doing that. She's doing a phenomenal job in doing that, quite frankly. Yes? So the question is, with elementary school children not being able to be vaccinated, are there any special accommodations? So special accommodations, I don't. Oh, no, as in virtual option, that was the question. No virtual option, at this time. Yeah. Will it change? It could, but right now there is no virtual option. But we do have a layered mitigation strategy that we keep talking about, and so that's something that's on everybody's minds, quite frankly. The students who are too young to be vaccinated, whether you want to be or not, they just can't because they're too young. So that is a concern that everybody is aware of, and that we're doing our best to try, which is why it's really important that everybody sort of does their part, especially, and protect those who are unvaccinated, whether they can't they're not permitted to be vaccinated, or eligible to be vaccinated, or other reasons they don't want to be vaccinated. I saw a hand here, and then we'll go here. Yes?
Following up on that, since our August elementary schools can't be vaccinated,
Mhm.
if there were to be an issue, is there any thought in place that the elementary schools would close, but we keep other levels open?
Sure.
Kids are vaccinated, is that a classified experience, like the whole district closes?
Sure. So the comment was, is there any possibility that, like, we would maybe just close the elementary schools and on road, but everybody else would go to school? So what I'm gonna say to that is that I would never say no to any possibility of anything, because that might be a way to go. I'm not sure, I mean, that would also be a thing, but nothing, we've gotten some good ideas because parents have emailed or called us or that sort of thing, or I've reached out to a parent and had conversations. So no idea, I always say no idea is a bad idea in brainstorming. Some ideas are better than others, of my own anyway, that, like I would never want to share them because they're terrible. But when you're thinking of things, it sparks other things. So there's nothing that I would take off the table at that point. That could actually be a reality, honestly. Yes.
One step further on the elementary students, so if they have to varsity, understanding there's no virtual option, those therapy accommodations, I don't know if that's the right word, but for those students that have to quarantine, be able to continue working while they're.
So the question was, because there's no virtual option, will there be something so that this elementary students especially can continue working, even though it really goes to everybody because of people are quarantined? And yes, absolutely, the teachers are maintaining their Google Classrooms and things like that. So yes, there absolutely will be. I will come to you, you've been waiting. It's okay, he forgot his question. Yes.
Will teachers who have been vaccinated have the option to wear a mask or not? Before you respond, I'm
Okay.
asking this from like a pedagogical process because as most people know in education and parents, learning for students youngest to oldest, a lot of that it comes from facial expression, from speech and language, reading lips and things like that. And I am I'm a masker, like I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying for teachers, like if a teacher said, I would prefer to teach unmasked, I'm comfortable with that, it's better for the students, and they're vaccinated, would that be an option for them?
So the question was, is it an option for teachers if they feel comfortable to teach unmasked, can they do so?
If they're vaccinated.
If they're vaccinated. That was the, right now, it's the executive order indicate, in fact, we even have to wear masks at board meetings.
Right.
So, and committee meetings, so right now, that's not an option. However, we do have other kinds of masks that show the face and things like that, and sometimes if it's a specific, like our classes with our deaf students, obviously, you know, they need to look at your face, so then we do other things, shields and other types of strategies that the teachers have worked with us on. Go ahead. Oh, Dr. Malady is here, so that's great. Another principal is here, so that's good. Yes.
Are we gonna have to fill out the COVID form every morning?
So actually, are we gonna have to fill out the COVID form every morning? So actually, that's, so short answer, yes, but let me explain. So when we were, a couple weeks ago, the COVID form was going to be, right, it was not gonna be mandatory if you were vaccinated and you shared that, like vaccination status, it wasn't going to be mandatory. Then, we shifted on that because of the trends that we're seeing and that sort of thing. So that's a strategy that, just like I said earlier with masks, if we go into low and we're sustained at low for a period, that's something that we would probably, that's a layer we would take back. However, I will also say this, we are looking at an expedited COVID form, so that it's not as you know, right.
Especially when you have multiple children.
Oh, I know, I'm living that too.
Like
So,
in my district, it's now optional.
okay,
Where I teach.
Okay.
So I just didn't know if it's based by district, you know.
right. So that's what we're looking at right now. Yes.
I understand in the beginning you mentioned obviously the executive order mask mandate and that it takes this out of your hands. But that you're not willing, even though some other districts have made masks optional.
Or they've written
Or
to
they've
make
written,
masks,
okay.
you know.
But that you're concerned or you're not willing to do that because of the number of people who are unable to be vaccinated. So I was wondering, is there a certain amount or is there a percentage of people, like what would it take in order for this district to make masks optional? Is there a certain amount of people who would need to be vaccinated? Is it like, what do you have in mind?
So the question is, what would it take in order for me to recommend making masks optional? Would it be a certain number of people vaccinated? Would it, and you know what, I'll think about that. Definitely if we're in low for a sustained period of time, I would immediately consider it. Not a week, but several weeks, I would absolutely consider that. Looking at the trends, talking to other people, and by other people I mean departments of health and things like that. So a specific number, I don't know. I haven't given it much thought. I will think about that. Yes.
The last question and answer I had asked, and then I had followed up with an email, and you said you were going to look into it with the school physician. If, like myself, my husband, both of my kids have already had COVID back in June and have the natural antibodies. Is there anything in the guidance, regarding, the mandatory masking or the vaccination when our doctors are recommending us actually not to get the vaccine? Because there's kind of like there's vaccinated, unvaccinated, but then there's, those of us that have natural immunity to this virus based on what our bodies were intended to do.
Right, so we haven't gotten any official guidance on it. The question was about if you've had COVID and you have natural antibodies to it, would there be a consideration for not masking and things like that? That was the question. So the question a couple weeks ago, I bet the answer is changed now, know, but there's been no official guidance on that. I did read just very recently, maybe even last night or early this morning, that if there's, because they're talking about the booster shot and the third shot, but if you've been vaccinated, so I suspect we're gonna get more information on that, because that's a real thing too.
Okay.
And right now, if you've had COVID, there's something in the guidance of quarantine that says that's someone who has had COVID-19 illness within the previous 3 months has recovered and remains without COVID symptoms and was a close contact, you don't have to quarantine. So they were very specific about the 3-month thing. So maybe it depends when you had it. So that's.
Yeah, because ours was late June with my son, but that's just about the quarantine, that's not about the mask.
Right, that's not about the mask.
Thank you.
So I bet it's gonna be
Okay.
connected. So, did I see a hand? Yes, ma'am.
So for families with multiple kids within a school, if one classroom is advised to quarantine based on a case or exposure, will siblings be required to stay home during that period?
So the question is if families with multiple children and if one classroom has to close, will the other sibling have to also quarantine? And different classrooms, you're just talking about families.
I have 4 kids going into each, yes. So back to your idea of their AC and TV.
Times 4.
Times 4, and I've had to leave my job in the course of COVID. So for planning, do I need to prepare to have 4 kids home doing
Right.
Google Classroom, just so I can mentally be ready?
And because the children are not eligible to be vaccinated, whether you wanted to or not, because they're not eligible to be vaccinated. You know what? Off the cuff, I'm gonna say no, but don't hold me to that. And I know you're recording me, so that's even on there, don't hold me to that. Let me look that up, I'm not positive, so let me be sure, and that might be part of the protocol that you were talking about with nurses. So let me look that up, because I'm not sure. Okay, but I tend to say no, but I wanna be positive.
I don't think it is.
Okay, and Dr. Trabulski agrees
I was
with
just
me.
saying, last year wasn't the case, and if
Okay.
the class got quarantined here, when your child, that didn't affect siblings or anybody else.
Okay.
Again, those guidelines have changed for this year, but last year, during the height of it, that was not the
Okay,
case. So-
Dr. Trabulski affirmed that last year that was not the case, so probably wouldn't be the case this year, but we're gonna get confirmation on that.
Last year it wasn't these.
Did you?
No,
I had kids at middle school. One got COVID, I had kids at.
oh, that's not what her question was, right? So, within the same family, but if you have a child in a classroom, that classroom gets quarantined for some reason, if your child has to stay home, it doesn't affect the other children who might be in second grade or in another third grade class. Yeah. Unless your child, even still, unless it's the whole school, if it affects one class, it wouldn't affect the other. Unless your child is the one who's COVID positive. But if they were just in contact with somebody, that wouldn't necessarily apply to them.
Okay.
I know it's complicated, but
Yeah.
I understood your question.
Okay, so we have 2 conversations going on. Okay, so virtual option, if kids want to do a virtual, so right now, virtual is not an option.
That's what I'm asking, like, parents can come together and vote for it, like we what you know, for kids because of the
Sure, it's not about, it's because that puts another strain on our teachers, and that was tough for everybody. That was tough for our teachers, that was tough for staff, it's tough for parents at home, it was just, that was huge. Right now, there's no virtual option, so parents could certainly go to the board and say, we want a virtual option. And it's not a recommendation, I'm gonna make it time. We're concerned about the social, emotional, health and well-being of our students. We're also concerned about the social, emotional, mental well-being of our staff. And it's really important. So we're trying to balance all of these things. Yeah, it was shared that there are virtual schools that parents can do if they choose to do it. That's what the parent was saying. Okay, 1 second. I'll come right back to you. You were waiting patiently.
Yeah, just back to the HES question with the multiple kids
Yes.
and Dr. Trabulski. I work in one school, my son goes to another school in this district. If one of us is exposed, like let's say his classroom is exposed, he has to stay home if whatever the guidelines are. Does that mean I have to stay home too, or is that what you're gonna clear up?
Right, that's what, I don't think that's the case. That's what we're gonna clear up.
Or vice versa, like if I have to stay
Right,
home.
right, yeah, I don't believe that to be the case, because then we'd be wiping out families.
Yeah.
Left and right, everybody would be wiped out. The question was if you know, she works in the school and her child is exposed, or vice versa, do they both have to stay home? And we'd be wiping out people left and right, so hopefully that's not the case.
If one of us tested positive, then both of us would have to stay home probably then.
Probably, yeah, at least for a short amount of time until the test
Okay.
came back. Okay, I'll go here, then you, because you've been waiting patiently.
It's so stupid.
So the question is, if you have to quarantine, kids are considered absent, are there any special accommodations for that? So right now, so the exclusion guidelines for attendance are, of course, by the state. So I suspect if that becomes an issue, that will come down from someone, but right now there are not any accommodations. What's that? It is, yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Right. Right. Quarantine is an absence. That was the question. You've been very patient. Thank you.
Yeah, my kids were not in school last year. I kept them home. So I'm just thinking as a parent, if my kid wakes up and they're not feeling good, you know, I don't know the reason. Do I just keep them home or?
So what we're asking is, yeah, and here's the thing. You know your children better than anybody. You know if you perhaps were exposed somewhere. You know if you went to a party. Go ahead, you can come in. Yes, go ahead, go right in, just go right in. That serves me. Go right ahead. Don't be scared, it's okay. So you know your children better than anybody. So if you are at a party and you think you are exposed, you keep your child home, you know.
What if you just don't know what it is? Like they just wake up and they're not feeling good, but you can't tell.
Right.
Do you err on the side of caution?
I would always, so if your child wakes up and you just don't know what it is, you know, you just don't know, do you err on the side of caution? I would absolutely always err on the side of caution. And by the way, that goes for staff too. If staff isn't feeling well and they're just not sure why, you want them to err on the side of caution.
Should you relax the attendance policy to make sure that kids?
That would seem logical.
Are you gonna have like 15 days out?
That would seem logical, but much of this is not logical. Like I said, there was a time in the spring when they literally said to us, between school days, you have to, between 7:30 to 2:30, you must wear a mask. But at 2:40, when you're outside, you don't have to wear a mask. I said to the executive, well, we all said, the superintendent said, do you realize how ridiculous we sound?
It's not about the virus.
You saying that?
You said it
Do you know what I mean?
perfectly.
So, I understand.
Yeah, because a lot of times kids will wake up in the morning, you don't know what it is yet.
Right.
You don't know if it's complaint.
Right.
But it's hard to ascertain at like 6:30 in the morning if you should send them or not.
Of course.
So I don't know as a parent, how do I get comfortable with, what if I send my kid to school and then there's an issue? Someone says, oh, you shouldn't have come today.
Well, you know what?
How as a parent do I deal with that?
So she's saying, how as a parent does she deal with that?
I don't
We
want my
just
kids
don't
to be
know.
out for 20 days.
Of course not.
Because I can't figure out if I should send them or not.
I think that honestly, what I would do as a parent, what I would do is use my best judgment. Do what I feel works for me.
And if they just a little sickly and I send them to school, is someone gonna come down on me for sending them?
Well, come down, they might call you, they might, but I hope that come down on is not the term we want to use. And I would say that's when you reach out to the principal or the school nurse and have a conversation. Mrs. Stotts?
Just as a former teacher in the district, even in normal times, I thought the staff, the administration was very accommodating for regarding absences. They would often roll them back, especially if there were mitigating circumstances and stuff like that. And I would think even more so now because of things that are totally out of your control. So I hope I'm not speaking out of line, that I hope you find comfort that it will not be held against you and that there will be, they'll be very flexible.
I used to get a letter, I used to put my daughter was out for 9 days, you used to get this letter.
Yeah, it's an automatic letter that
That's just the state.
Mrs. Stotts, as a former teacher, was saying to the parents that, was saying that oftentimes if these absences are things that are out of your control, they roll back the absences so that others might work. So that's something you see most often at the high
The
school.
letter is
because
the
it's
firewall.
connected to
The
credits.
letter would be defined
But,
as, that's how
you know,
it's
that's,
something to do with.
you know, that's what she was saying, I actually think
Well, we
it's
are
about
monitoring
the
child
absence of looking at
presence,
the
but
loss
we
of
would,
learning.
the letter is the concept, we can find out what's going on.
Two conversations again.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to point out, it's 9:57, so I just want to point that out. Yes, ma'am.
What about masks outside on school grounds?
Masks outside on school grounds.
Class, all that stuff.
So, outside on school grounds, right now, outdoor masking is not a thing. You know, unless someone wants to wear it. If someone wants to wear it, they can. And of course, you've got all the mask exemptions too. If it's too hot, if it's too, so right now, outside, now, is that gonna change? It might. But right now, it's as long as you can maintain the social distancing, it's not recommended.
I work at Woods Road.
Okay.
With preschoolers, and we take them out as much as possible. We have outside snack on beach towels and stuff like that, and then they run around on the blacktop and play. So can you have them take this past year, they all had their masks on in 90-degree weather, running around and playing, it was horrible. So would we be able to have their masks off when they're running around playing on the blacktop, because the playgrounds have been closed?
Right.
So that kind of goes to that too. Our playground's gonna be open and cleaned up for the kids.
Our playground's gonna be open and cleaned up. And yes, Mr. Mahmood has been working on that. Let me, with the exception of HES right now, we're still working on HES. But as of right now, as long as they can maintain social distancing, yes, but that could change. But as of right now, yes. Playgrounds are gonna be open. Mr. Mahmood has been, actually, they've been open.
We're just waiting on the playground mulch.
We're waiting on the playground mulch, which, the playground mulch is a problem because everything that we need to be delivered is a problem. Is a problem, everything. It's, I mean, even referendum stuff, that's a problem. Yes.
What about staffing? If a teacher has to quarantine, or, you know, if they're not vaccinated or their child is quarantined and they're staying home, is there gonna be a sub for the 2 weeks or 7 days, or however long they need to be out?
So we're getting subs, absolutely, we're getting subs. And Mr. Callahan has been, you know, working on that. So right now, that's what we're doing, as of right now. It's exactly 10 o'clock, yes.
For staff and maybe students, but like as a staff member, I'm fairly new, so I don't have like the 1,000 hours built up in my time off bank, my PTO bank. If, like, I had to quarantine 10 days, that would wipe out most of my time. Can you look into a way that maybe we don't have to use all of our time if we have to stay home? Because it's something that isn't in our control.
Right.
But instead of losing all of our time, because if let's say I had to stay out twice a year, I would have no time, I would be
Sure,
paid.
sure. Yeah, right now, it's an employee about, if she has to quarantine, she's losing all her sick time, essentially, because you can wipe out her sick time. And she asked if we would look into that. Of course, we'll look into that. Right now, the opinion we received was that it would be sick time, and then we'd have to look further after that.
What if it was school related? Like what if like it was a kid in their class?
Because, you know what, I could get sick from a student, you know, as a cold.
Right.
You know, it's chicken pox or
Right,
whatever,
right.
so it's all
Right.
sort of the same. It's after 10 o'clock. So I'm happy I can stay a little while longer, but, you know, I know that they gave us the room until 10 o'clock.
Yeah.